Kristin, hello. Good to see you. Thanks for being on the show.
It's great to see you too, Paul, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, we met at an NTMA Emerging Leaders Conference last year down in Phoenix. It was hot, but it was a lot of fun. We drank some beers and we got to know each other a little bit, and I've been a fan of yours ever since. So I'd love for you to help share a little bit more about yourself and your shop with the rest of the audience. And they'll probably fall in love with you like I did. So why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, I'll just say first, the feelings are mutual, Paul.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So like Paul said, my name is Kristin Carlson. I am president and co-owner of Peerless Precision. We are located in Westfield, Massachusetts. And we have been around since 1976. We focus on the precision manufacture of small, complex mechanical components for aerospace, defense, medical devices, and commercial industries. And most recently, manned spaceflight as of this year. So we really excel when tolerances of plus or minus 10,007" or better are required. We can achieve 1 helium light banded flatness, get down to a 2 RA surface finish, and also maintain plus or minus 5/millionths in roundness. And we are able to achieve 3,007" wall thickness for a titanium component that goes into cryogenic cooling systems for thermal imaging cameras. That's like foil.
Yeah, I was just doing the math in my head. A 3,000 wall thickness. That is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's actually for a very specific, it goes into it's called a cold well or cold finger weldment. It goes into the cryogenic submicro cooling systems for thermal imaging, night vision, and infrared cameras. And I wish I had a part sitting on my desk right now that I could hold up for you, because when the heat transfer is happening, the shaft on this part is where the heat transfer happens. So it ends up being white hot or white cold, depending on how you want to view it. And it's so cold that if you touch it, you would burn your fingers off. We are one of 3 critical component suppliers for these systems in New England, and are one of 2 companies in the entire country that can actually make this specific type of part. And more companies are coming to us to make the specific family of parts. So little side note, when they found the Boston Marathon bomber hiding underneath the tarp in the boat in 2013, that part and other parts that we make for that system that were made in our shop were in the camera that found him.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
wow, amazing.
It's cool to be able to tell stories like that. But
absolutely.
And I kind of diverted there for a second, but we are a contract manufacturer / job shop. We do prototyping through low volume production runs. 4 and 5 axis CNC milling. We have a full CNC turning department. And then where we get all those magical tight tolerances is really on our finishing and tool making side. So we do surface grinding, ID, OD, and jig grinding, honing, roll and match lapping, burring, blasting. We got into laser welding in 2019, so we do that now as well. Mechanical assembly. So our goal is to ensure that our customers are receiving the parts they need, completely ready to be put into the system they're meant for without any additional machining needed. So we handle the full supply chain from start to finish. We'll make 1 piece, we'll make 5 pieces, we'll make a few thousand depending on what they want.
Wow, that is quite a diverse set of expertise and really vertically integrated.
That's what you have to do nowadays. And it's not just something we started recently. It's been like that, for as long as I can remember. The company when it was founded in the 70s, it was like a lot of shops are founded. It's, you had the founder, his name was Stan, who worked at another shop, said, I can do this myself. Probably started, doing a little work out of the garage or basement. I don't know all the full history, but when the company first moved into our previous building down the road, it was all grinding, honing, lapping, some manual lathe, manual milling. My dad purchased the company in 97. I was 15.
Okay.
Well, I turned 15 the day after we moved to Massachusetts from Chicago to,
oh, wow.
Come out here and start working or running the company.
Was your dad an employee, or how was that?
No, my dad was a serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
we had been living. He had worked at ServiceMaster for a period of time as a financial officer, and that moved us from New Hampshire to Virginia and then out to Chicago. And like a lot of times when management changes at companies like that, they go and get rid of the highest paid people. And my
Sure.
dad was one of those folks. So he got to the point, and I must have been, I don't know, first or second grade when that happened. And he got
Mm-hmm.
tired of putting his all into other people's companies just to get let go. So he
Right.
said, I'm going to start my own business. So he started a vending business in the Chicago suburbs called D&L Vending. So it was
Cool.
great for me growing up because and all my siblings too, because we had a garage full of snacks.
My kids would love that.
And I would go around and ride with my mom or my dad and fill up vending machines and then take the big bag of change to the bank. And the tellers would let me go behind the counter and dump the change into the coin counting machine. And I
Oh,
thought that
what
was the
fun.
coolest thing ever.
No
Um,
kidding.
he then also started another company when we were still living out there that was designed to help other entrepreneurs find the resources they needed to start their companies and that network and everything.
Mm-hmm.
There were some things that happened with his partner at the time. Some money went missing, I
Oh,
suppose, to put it nicely.
yeah.
Um, so instead of starting another company from scratch, he wanted to look to purchase an established business that
Okay.
had a good enough reputation, but was small enough where there was room to grow and make it his own. So he was
Yeah.
looking to, in the Chicago area to keep us there. He was looking in New England because my mom's family was in New England and then Virginia
Mm-hmm.
with where his mom lived. And
Okay.
he found Peerless. The owner was looking to retire. It had that established reputation.
Yeah.
Most of the customers back then were electronics, IBM. Had just started getting into a little bit of the aerospace and defense, but it was
Okay.
still. I think we had one small CNC mill, probably like a Yang or something. I don't even remember. I was again in high school at the time, and then
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we had any CNC lathes back then. And
Okay.
my dad saw the opportunity to bring in some new technology, so we started bringing CNC machines slowly but surely. But no matter how much we advance, we in technology here, we always hold true to our roots.
Mm-hmm.
Because grinding, lapping, honing, those are tolerances and finishes that CNC machines cannot achieve
Yeah,
without
sure.
the person who knows how to do it on the finishing side.
Yeah.
So it's made us that one-stop shop for all of our customers.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
cool. And so your dad bought it, and then tell me again, when and how did you take that over?
So I started as the shop kid when I was 15 in 97.
Okay.
Climbing into machines, cleaning them out, sweeping floors, doing the finger check on the bandsaw with my foreman, make sure I wasn't cutting any of my digits off. I then did shipping and receiving and purchasing. I moved to California to kind of make sure I could do things on my own without relying on the family and the family business. So my
Mm-hmm.
husband and I, well, we were dating at the time, but we moved there from 2005 to 2012. Um, I have been running the company since September of 2012. My
Okay.
father had been diagnosed with colon cancer in 2009, and at that when he found out, he asked me if something were to happen to him, would I come home to help my mom either decide to keep the company going or sell it? And I said
Right.
absolutely, never thinking that anything would happen.
Sure.
And it's important to point out too, my dad always wanted me to be doing what I'm doing now, and him and I were too much alike, and I didn't want him defining my path for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do it, but I would. I'm also the
Right.
oldest, so I'm the responsible one, and I'm always the one to, take care of the family. And so
Sure.
he had been told he had beaten it. We went through some radiation therapy, had surgery, clean bill of health, don't come back for another year. And before that year was up, it was metastasized. So
Oh,
by the end of 2011, it had come back. He called me in the beginning of 2012, and I agreed to, I put it off for a while because it was, a denial thing for me too.
of
But I
course.
came back in August, at the end of August of 2012. No, we got here the second week of September. We left California at the end of August.
Okay.
And I had a little over a month with my dad before he left us. But come to find out, my dad was always right about what I was going to be good at. I might say I'm a little bit better than he is.
There
I
you go.
actually have some of his
You'd be proud
colleagues
of that.
tell me that. My customers tell me that too. And I'm very appreciative for the opportunity that he gave me to
Right.
run this company, and now it's mine. It's
Wow.
my company. It's not his anymore.
That's a big honor and big shoes
Yeah,
to fill, I'm sure.
yeah, they are. Luckily, I've got big feet like he did, so it wasn't that
Yeah.
hard. stretch.
Well, yeah, it's great that you found such a passion in doing it. So
Yeah.
that's
Who knew?
that's almost perfect. That's perfect. It's absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. So what size is your company? How many people, machines?
So we have 25 employees here,
Okay.
including myself. So really 24. I
Yeah.
mean, my mom's another one, but I count her in that because she's working towards retirement. So
Sure.
we have 25 people now. We have grown from 19 since I started running the company in 2012. So all about slow,
Okay.
sustainable growth.
Sure. Sure.
Um, and we've got a lot of machines. We have four CNC mills, two 4-axis, a 4 with a positional fifth, and then a full-blown 5-axis.
Hmm.
And we have five CNC lathes, two which are bar feeders. One is dedicated to the specific manufacture of cold fingers.
Oh
And then
yeah.
we've got three Okumas that offer larger diameter capabilities and more for prototyping shorter runs and whatnot. So
Right.
on our finishing side, let's say we have one laser welder, 4 surface grinders, 3 roll lappers, and then we've got some speed lathes to lap the IDs on parts for match lapping for match sets. We've got 2 ID grinders, 2 OD grinders, a jig grinder, two hones, and a whole bunch of engine lathes and old beater OD grinders that they haven't made since like the 1950s, and they don't make them like they used to, and those do really
Sure.
good work when it's making carbide pins. So
Right.
there's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned industries. You seem to be pretty well diversified. Aerospace, defense, now space,
Yeah.
medical.
Yeah, we
Um,
do. We do a medical. We mostly make components for prosthetics,
okay.
like prosthetic knees. We actually prototyped quite a few years ago a mechanical prosthetic shoulder for an inventor in Eastern Mass. It's
Oh
pretty
wow.
cool. Although when you're inventing things, if you take too long, someone's come out with a better design by the time you get yours out, and that's what
Of
happened,
course.
with him. But
Okay.
it was pretty neat to see. Aerospace, we generally are making components for fuel injection systems, engines, hydraulics, and landing gear.
Hmm.
Um, Fuel injection, we make a lot of matched valve and sleeve or piston sleeve sets. A lot of them have a diametrical clearance of plus or minus 20 millionths of an inch. So
Wow.
it's like a pure mechanical fit. Engineers love it when I'm at a trade show. You can feel the pure suction that's coming just from that
Yes.
big fit.
Of
Um,
course.
Defense, a lot of the aerospace we do is tied into defense as well. We're only a little
Hmm.
bit in the commercial sector, but defense wise, where the cameras that we make components for, a big portion of it, we do work for the Navy, make parts for the U.S. Navy occasionally, and also a
Hmm.
lot of their subcontractors. So we've made components that go into the firing mechanisms for the smart missile systems for the submarines for the Navy.
Mm.
I'm working on electric boat right now,
Hmm.
so always trying to find out what can fit us.
Sure.
Um, Commercial, we've been starting to do parts for air compressors this year or
Okay.
last year actually, and but more. We make a lot of cosmetic components for giant microscopes and 3D measuring systems.
Oh,
So when
cool.
you're a aerospace and defense supplier who all of a sudden gets into a cosmetic world, we've got a
It's a
different
different
interpretation. It
world.
was a learning curve, but
Yeah.
it took us about a year to figure it out with them, but we've been supplying to this company since 2014. So now it's
Okay.
perfect parts. And this specific
Right.
company, we didn't have parts on it, but they actually made the camera that was able to capture the first picture of a black hole a few years ago.
Oh
And I'm like,
wow.
again, well, we didn't make parts for it. I said, that's
That's
my
cool.
customer, and yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
We also
So.
work with other shops too. So
Hmm.
because of the tolerances that we can achieve, we will do
Mm-hmm.
one-off operations for folks.
Right.
Because it's like none of us want to say no to our customers. So you get your
Sure.
supply chain and make sure you can get it done.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know, in our own shop experience, being diverse is a wonderful thing, especially as the economy moves ups and downs here
Mhm.
and there. Um, was the company really that diverse when your dad bought it, or when you took it over, or have you really made it a mission to diversify?
So it's we always had two main customers, one aerospace, one defense, and then a lot of little customers.
Hmm.
Normally, for years and years and years, when one of those big customers would drop down a little bit, the other one would pick up.
Okay.
Um, and then I had I did a lot of figuring out on how everything worked when I first came back, because I came from being a buyer at a fire alarm contractor to running a machine shop. And
Okay.
so when in 2013 and 14, when sequestration happened, budget cuts, both of our biggest customers tanked.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had already been, I had gone to my first trade show in the middle of 2014, and um, they're the company that we make the cosmetic components for. They came to that show specifically to see me, and that was my first big customer that came in. They're number three now.
Oh, wow. That's
So it's
awesome.
always I was more um, forceful, I guess, about diversification.
Hmm.
It prior to me, there was always the effort to do it, but when our two big customers said jump, we said how high, and we'll let other people drop. And
Right.
that's not, for me, every customer is important. Doesn't matter how small they are.
Right.
So it's we make a lot of we make components, aftermarket spare parts for the PMAs for aircraft. And
Yeah.
there's a local company that actually, it's again same story. The founder worked at a shop, branched off, wanted to do this, knew my dad, said, this is my idea. I'd love for you guys to be my premier suppliers. So they actually
Hmm.
built their company on the backs of Peerless. And
Wow.
so now it's, when they're going out and getting new PMAs and finding new parts that they need to reverse engineer, we get a stack of drawings and say, which one do you want to do? Like pick them.
Hmm. Right.
So, it's all about relationships, and, and
Yeah.
not just talking, but actually proving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. How how do you go about ensuring you have that really long-term, deep relationship with customers?
I'm very involved with the start of it and throughout the process.
Okay.
All of my cousin, I put myself in the middle of things a lot. I delegate a lot here, but there's sometimes where my customers need to hear from me, good things and bad things. And I have a way of uh, explaining what's going on so that before it's too late. So to know that we're committed to making the parts. So it's I will go, and the first time we
Hmm.
ship something to a new customer, as long as they're within driving distance, I hand deliver parts myself.
Oh,
Can we look at
nice.
them now? I'd love to see what you guys think. A great example is we actually a company in Eastern Mass. They're an engineering and a small machine shop. Or they're making some cryogenic seal parts for. They're a space technologies company, and they're it's a prototype they're working on, and this cryogenic seal wasn't working, so they reached out to us, because we do lapping, and the owner
Hmm.
drove the 2 hours out to bring the parts. And I
Hmm.
had my foreman come in with me because he's my master guru of all things finishing and
Hmm.
tight tolerance work. We worked through it. We did some sample parts. I couldn't unfortunately drive him out, but we turned him around in 2 days. I said, "Here's the tracking number. Let me know what you think." He
Right.
agreed because it was an experiment. Like, if it's okay with you, because we're going to have to make fixturing. We don't know how much time it's going to take because the stock removal. Can
Right.
we do the work, and then I'll give you a quote? And he
Hmm.
was fine with that. And he got the parts after 2 days. Um, and the test, like when he got him, they tested him that morning. It was beautiful. The rest of the parts I left with you, can you please finish? Here's another purchase order. We'll have another 24 sets coming for you afterwards. But it was that, it's, yes, I will always make time to, if you want to come and show us what you got, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, they shipped out today, here's where we're at, we're going to have them done tomorrow. It's in any customer relationship, whether it be established or new, it's all about communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know from, because sometimes I am the customer with our vendors, and when there's a lack of communication, that's when, it's my
Right.
vendors don't always want to see my face.
Sure.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you tell me
Uh,
what's going on before I call looking for the parts, we're good, but if
yeah.
you wait until afterwards, then I've got a
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it just sounds like a little bit like the golden rule in
Yeah.
effect, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
you know how you want to be treated.
Well, and that's it. It's do unto others, right?
Hmm.
When I first came back to the company, we had a little bit of a different management team. The majority of it's the same, but I had a foreman who had been with us for a while. He was older. he wasn't the most responsible of folks, and financially not capable of taking, handling things.
Okay.
And my dad, he had my dad kind of wrapped around his middle finger, and I saw past that. So he was, coming to work less. We put him on part time. He would leave work and then
Mm,
come back in, and he'd go to the bar and then come back in drunk, and then start giving everyone on the shop floor crap and say, "What are you guys doing? Not working?" It's like, go home, Tony. You're not. I mean, he's so. I had a disease in my shop that it took me a while to realize and be able to get the guts, build the guts up to do something
hmm.
about it, because firing people is not fun.
No.
Um, but he the point of this is that when he was around, and the mind frame of that was like, tell the customer whatever they need to hear, so it's not our fault. Lie, lie, lie. And I'm just like,
Oh
I
boy.
can't operate like this, because what's worse is when you get caught in the lie.
Of
And
course.
our customers, any customer is always more understanding if you're upfront. It sucks giving people bad news. No one likes to do it,
Of course.
especially when you've been doing everything you can to meet a deadline, and then you send something out of the shop and it's out of your hands.
Hmm.
Or it's we did a job for the first time and we scrapped the first one, so we have to start it over again. But that's part of the
Right.
that's part of the
Sure.
learning curve, and the experience of making something for the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm all about, I'm over honest. I give my customers too
Hmm.
much information, and they are
Hmm.
extremely appreciative about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone once said, what was it? Bad news doesn't age well. It's not like a good wine, right? You just gotta right up front. As soon
Yeah.
as you see issues happening, the more time you give them to respond, the more
Right.
options you can come up with,
Yeah,
right?
if the more proactive we can be, the better. We can't always be proactive, especially when we do our best not to be having fire drills, but sometimes just, shit hits the fan and that happens.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, but, proactivity has done a lot for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you finally got up the guts and fired Tony, how did that change the culture in your shop? What you
Oh
know?
my goodness, it was like a sigh of relief, because I didn't make that decision lightly, and I had been talking with a couple of my senior employees. They're not much older than I am. My foreman is a year older than me, and he's been with us since 2000. We
22
graduated the same.
years.
Yeah, yeah. He was born in 81. I was born in 82. We both graduated the same year, and then my CNC milling guru and programmer. He's also been with us since 2000. A couple of years older than I am as well. So I had conversations with both of them, and
Hmm.
they're both working managers. So they're both
Hmm.
programming and running machines and everything, because they have a talent that you just can't duplicate.
Wow.
But they also have the respect in the shop. So
Hmm.
I didn't want to put anyone into a management position that wasn't comfortable with it. So I had long conversations with them first, and
Right.
the other parts of my management team. So now
Hmm.
we've got, so we, they, at one time I got a responsible, if you want me to be manager, I will. And I'm like, that's not what I'm asking. I'm like, I'm asking, are you open to it? Do you want it? And so our foreman deals with the manual side, the finishing side of things. And
Hmm.
then our
Hmm.
CNC manager manages the CNC department. And then we've got a production manager, who also is an estimator and process engineer.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
my QC manager. So
Right.
doing that, all of a sudden, like, Tony coming in and with the attitude that he had, was just bringing everyone down. You could tell the mood. You could see the mood on the shop. My mood wasn't good.
Yeah.
But it was life changing for all of us. Everyone started being more productive again. They weren't, looking around the corner to see when, their boss was going to come in and start yelling at them for nothing,
Hmm.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also, he, as I wanted to grow and diversify, he didn't want that to happen. So that commercial
Mm.
optics customer I brought in, the cosmetic one,
Right.
um, he was going around the shop saying she doesn't know what she's doing. She's gonna run us into the ground. There's no way we can make money on these. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Tony?
Yeah.
It's like, you start off like that, and we're never like, now it's in everyone's head. Like, let's give it
Sure.
a shot. So I'm a firm believer that if someone else is making a part, more often than not, we are completely capable of doing it.
Sure.
Because of the talent we have, and because of, you know, we do more than just CNC machining.
Sure.
We've got a history, and we've got some really smart people, and sometimes I need to tell them that or reaffirm that. I've
Hmm.
got faith in you. I know you can do it. If you got to scratch your head for a little bit, I know you're going to figure it out, and they always do.
Hmm. Right. I love that. Um, so basically, when Tony left, you promoted folks to kind of be working leads in each of those departments. Is that what
Right.
happened?
Yeah, promoted from within,
Okay.
because that's
Right.
always better. I was looking at, I either promote these two guys from within, or then I
Hmm.
have to hire someone from outside, and that never goes well.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
they don't know the shop. They don't know the people here. They don't know the culture.
Sure.
I've got we've got a great retention rate. We've got a lot of people have been here for well over 10 years. We just pointed out my two
Yeah.
newer managers have been here for 22.
Yeah.
Um, one since his cooperative opportunity from his vocational school, my foreman, and then
Wow.
Rick and Bill, my our CNC manager, he went to a traditional high school, but then went to a training program that we used to have in Western Mass. He worked at another shop and then came over here. And
Hmm.
he wasn't a programmer at first, but we had lost a programmer, I think,
Hmm.
in 2001 or two, and it was learn to do it because you have to. And
Right.
God, is he smart? I mean, it's he does things that other shops can't quote. So
Right.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So how that's remarkable tenure. What do you do to get people to stick with you for 22 years or more?
It's all about how we treat people. We're a small family business, and everyone in here is part of that family, whether we're getting along or not, because that's how families operate. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I look around, and I could count, half the people here have known me since I was 15, 16, and 17 years old.
Right.
And so I've seen their kids grow up. We know personal things about each other. I feed them a lot. I'm a
Okay.
baker. I'm a baker, and I
Okay.
can and I preserve. It's like anything that we can do to, when we're really busy and people are just busting their butts to get stuff done, working 50, 60 hours a week, all of a sudden, and I say, okay, next week on Wednesday, we're shutting down at noon. I'm doing an employee appreciation event. We're going axe throwing. If you want to come, you get paid for the rest of the day. If you don't want
Uh-huh.
to, that's your choice. You can still take a half day. Because I
Right.
also don't force anyone to participate in any curricular
Sure.
activities that doesn't want to, because they're
Sure.
just going to bring the party down.
Right.
I'm out on the shop floor constantly. I'm talking to people, asking them about their families, how's everything going. I want to know everyone, and I want them
Hmm.
to feel comfortable coming to me with things.
Right.
We also have flexible scheduling. So, generally we want you in here by 8 o'clock in the morning, but
Hmm.
if you talk to me about it, we can work something out. So we have guys that show up, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Some guys don't come until 7 or 8. Some
Hmm.
work 5 days a week. Some put all of their hours into 4 days.
Okay.
It's all about getting the work done.
Right. Right. Wow.
And I work at home on Fridays, so and I know how night like that was a life-changing thing for me. I
Hmm.
get more work done in a half day at home on Friday with no one bothering me than I do in like a month at the shop.
Right.
So
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Wow.
you
And
know if yeah
I
it's
think
that
I've
know what they need, know what they want. It's not the 1980s anymore, the 90s. Like, people want
sure.
flexible scheduling.
Yeah. Yeah. They got to
Yeah,
drop their kid off at school or pick them up or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think I've seen, maybe it's on LinkedIn, you have a like an annual pig roast or
Oh, yeah.
some big thing. So it
Yes,
sounds like
August.
you just okay. So you just go deep on these community events, these
Yeah,
family
so
events.
my dad actually started that event in 2006 when we bought the building we're in right now. So
Okay.
we
Yeah.
moved from mm, like a 3,000 square foot leased building
Hmm.
down the street, and we bought where the building we're in now is about 20,000 square feet. We're in 10. We have one tenant occupying 1,000 square feet, and then we have another 10,000 that we're going to use to expand into down the line.
Oh, nice.
Um, so at the time, my dad was very heavily involved with the Western Mass chapter of the National Tooling and Machining Association. I
Hmm.
don't remember if he was current chapter president, or if it was his second time being he was chapter president multiple times because he loved that.
Right.
And he came up with an idea. He wanted to start a fun summer networking event, not just for our
Mm-hmm.
members, but for like local legislators, politicians, friends, family, supporting industries. It's all about the numbers. And
Yeah.
back then, there were a lot more machine shops on the street we're on. So we
Yeah.
would rotate. and have it at different shops. And the caveat was you have to be willing to open up your facility to a tour to all the attendees so that they can see
Mm-hmm.
and get exposed. So he started that in 2006. It kept growing and growing and growing. People started looking forward to it. After he passed away, I wasn't a full member of the board of the chapter at the time, but I had started to go because it was,
Mm-hmm.
I was told it was going to be good for me, which it was,
Mm-hmm.
and it still is. And the board actually, not my aunt, my mom's younger sister said, why don't you guys, because your dad was so heavily involved with workforce development, he was on the governor's STEM council, he was the one who would stir the pot in Massachusetts and really get things going about how important it is to have training programs for the machining industry, because we're the backbone of the economy in this state.
Absolutely.
Um, so my aunt said, why don't you guys start a memorial education fund in his name? And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a great idea. And I
Mm.
brought it to the board of directors. We opened up an account called the Larry A. Mayer Memorial Education Fund, and then the board voted, and it was approved unanimously that any proceeds raised at the pig roast moving forward would go directly to fund the Larry Fund.
Oh,
That's
wow.
what I call it, nicely.
Yeah,
That's my
sure.
the Big L Fund. That's what I called him, the Big L. Um, and so we've always gotten sponsors, to help the cost and make it free for our attendees. And once we
Mm-hmm.
started making it a fundraiser, the sponsorships have grown and grown and grown. Surprisingly enough, last year, because we couldn't have it in 2020, we had more sponsors than we've ever had, but our
Yeah,
attendees were down because it was still very nerve-wracking being out in public, but it was
sure.
still a good event. Um, so, and the Larry Mayer Memorial Education Fund is used to help support and promote careers in training and manufacturing in the Lower Pioneer Valley, which is where our region is. So
Okay.
we help, we make donations to new training programs. We help send students to the Skills USA competitions,
Mm.
we'll pay for bus trips for like elementary school and middle school kids to go and take tours of shops. So it's, does this, there's a high school where I live, Agawam High School, that brought in created a new manufacturing program a few years ago. In
Wow.
Massachusetts, we have this innovation pathway program through the Commonwealth Corporation, which also heads the state's workforce training fund.
Okay.
Traditional high schools can submit um, um, uh, what are they called, like memorandums or letters of
Mm-hmm.
understanding, or plans, almost grant applications, saying, we know where we live, we've got where our school is, we've got a ton of machine shops, and they've come to us, we've heard the cry that they need more employees and they need more training programs, so we'd like to do this. And I've set
Mm-hmm.
myself up in the state because I don't say no to a lot of things, which I
Mm-hmm.
should get better about, but it helps everyone. That when
Yeah.
someone wants to talk about workforce development, manufacturing, training, they all say, call Kristin. So the school reached out to me. I actually put them in touch with our local regional employment boards, which helped them with grants. We put together an advisory committee. The Larry Mayer Fund made, I think, $1,000 donation towards getting to get raw materials. They had
Mm-hmm.
machines donated from the local shops. We hooked them up with Haas. So that
Wow.
they were able to get like the control panels to start
Yep.
learning on, donated from
Yeah.
us and everything. So, that's
Sure.
what it's for. It's to help, help keep that pipeline of future machinists coming.
That's such important work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Wow, that's
thanks. You're
amazing.
welcome. It's my pleasure.
Wow. So what does that
Never
high school program look like today? How many
Well,
students?
so it wasn't that far of a stretch, which was good because they already had a First Robotics League that housed in the
Oh,
basement.
nice.
So they
Mhm.
share the space with the First Robotics League, Rosie
Okay.
Robotics, and it's offered as almost they're not extracurricular activities, but I've been out of school for too long. The classes that you take that you don't need to really take, but are
Oh, electives?
Thank you, electives.
Yeah.
Again, it's been a long time, and
Yes.
so it's more offered as an elective.
Uh-huh.
But then they also work on articulation agreements with our local technical community college, so that
Mhm.
the students that are enrolled in these electives And they've got, like basic, like intro to machining, there's blueprint reading. We haven't met in a couple of years because of the pandemic. So I have to, hopefully we're touching base and getting going again this school year, with at least the advisory side of it so we can see where
Hmm.
they're at.
Yeah.
But they have articulation agreement with their local technical community college, so they can actually take classes at the community college while they're still in high school and
Hmm.
graduate with almost completing their associate's degree.
That's
So,
amazing.
there's another high school called West Springfield High School who started one of those innovation pathways in 2013, and same thing. They have students graduate from their high school, and they're like one credit away from getting their associate's degree.
Beautiful. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So have you been the beneficiary of hiring high school students out of these programs or community college things?
I mean, generally, because I have gotten interns, from the community college. It's called Springfield Technical Community College. They have a great manufacturing program, and it's one of the only ones in the entire state of Massachusetts, the
Oh
state of
wow.
manufacturing, Massachusetts, whatever we want to call it.
Hmm.
Um, and they have a program because again the Larry Funds made donations there, or donated like 3D printer filament. Here's well, we've got someone
Right.
dropped off the filament, we're going to match it with $1,000 check, here you
Right.
go. So they call me and they say, well, we've got this learn to earn program, so the students go out on internships, they're earning credits while they're getting paid. I'm like, oh, so it's like a co-op.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the same terminology across the country, but in our state, if there's a vocational school and they're a
Yep.
Chapter 74 program, the students can go out on a cooperative agreement with an employer either their junior or senior year. So they're here during their shop week,
Hmm.
and I usually, more often than not, they get hired after they graduate high school, if as long as they graduate high school.
Right.
But so the intern, oh no, I didn't bring her to emerging leaders. Oh, that's too bad, because she was actually in 2019 she was identified as a NTMA 30 under 30, which
Oh,
was huge.
awesome. Yeah.
And she's right now, her name's Caitlin. She came in on a 3-month internship in 2017 or 18, and after the first month I offered her a permanent position.
I think
So
you did bring a young woman to the Phoenix
So
Emerging
that so
Leaders.
that was NJ from United Centerless employee Stephanie. Um,
Okay.
which,
Okay.
yeah, I mean she's a little firecracker, but Caitlin's actually, so she finished her associate's degree in manufacturing technology from Springfield Tech. And she is currently at Springfield Tech, has an articulation agreement with Northeastern University.
Hmm.
So she is getting her bachelor's online for advanced manufacturing systems from Northeastern at community college pricing.
Hmm.
And I do tuition reimbursement as long as they want to go to college for something that's going to better them here, improve,
Yep.
offer them a growth path. And every semester we pay for, we reimburse, and there's great, they have to meet certain grades and everything. You
Hmm.
know, I don't want a D. It's you're not going to do it with D's. Like you're going to have to
Sure.
pay for it
Sure.
then. I want to be average or better, but so we pay for 50% up front, and then at the end of the semester, as long as their grades are in line,
Hmm.
they get the rest of it reimbursed plus books. And then they sign a
Awesome.
contract that every semester that we pay for, they're going to work here for a year, so that I can make sure we're getting an ROI on it.
Yeah.
But the past 2 years, Caitlin's actually been awarded a scholarship from the NTMA Foundation. For, I think it was the Brock Babb Scholarship. So she's been getting scholarships. So it's, helped us
Hmm.
pay for her tuition for the past 2 years. So
Oh, that's so great.
yeah.
That's so great. Yeah. No, in our shop, we always had at least two employees on the advisory board of our local machining program at our community college, and they would go every month and they'd meet and help them improve the curriculum because it was a little bit outdated and needed some upgrading,
Yep.
so that those graduates, were more better suited to jump right into into working with us. And it was such a great investment. We always had the pick of the cream of the crop every year. There's new graduates, and be like, yeah, these two are really the stars, and we could try to recruit them.
Yeah, so
So
I'm on a few vocational manufacturing department advisory boards.
yeah.
For the it's not there's quite a few shops that are on it. I'm actually the the chair of Westfield Technical Academy, my local one now.
Hmm.
Or at least I go and I talk to the school committee now and be the voice for
Hmm.
them because I'm very vocal, outspoken
Yes.
person. But I have it set up, and I didn't try to do it. It's just what happened because of my attitude towards things and how I'm willing to help and offer guidance. That every year when there's co-op students ready for co-op and internships, the schools call me and ask me if I need anyone.
Right.
So, we have for a while prior to the pandemic, we were bringing in at least one co-op student per year, or one intern per year. Because
Right.
when I came back to the company, I looked around and saw what a lot of shops see is more folks with gray hair and close to retirement. I mean,
Sure.
it doesn't, you can get gray hair at 18, but these are guys in
Yeah.
their 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
We had our lead inspector was, 77 when he retired a few years ago. So,
Okay.
um, I looked around and I'm like, well, what am I going to do when all of a sudden I'm at this cliff and everyone's
Yeah.
jumping off?
Sure.
So I like to bring the co-op students in while the experienced folks were still around,
Mm-hmm.
so they can learn that tribal knowledge, learn from the experts, so that when they did retire,
Mm-hmm.
we weren't stuck.
Yeah.
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 I mean, there's no really replacing that type of talent, especially, tool makers and people who have been doing it for 40 years, and they
Of
don't teach
course.
the same things in the schools as they used to.
Mm-hmm.
But all the learning done at the shop. The schools are for school. You get basic knowledge. You get the building
Yeah.
blocks, and you learn
Yeah.
everything else on the job.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, well, that's, kudos to you. It's just a big long-term investment, both in your own shop, but in the community and
Mhm.
the industry. So yeah, if every shop owner did what you did, we'd have a lot more engagement in
Yeah, I
manufacturing.
agree. I wish I could clone myself and spread myself more out, for that, or be able to, I can teach or help guide on, how to do what Kristin does, but
Mhm.
it's just me.
Yeah.
And I don't just do it for my company,
Sure.
because we are a community of machine shops in Westfield, where we're located. I think they're located. There's at least 30 shops, 30 machine shops in our little city of 41,000 people.
Wow.
Um, and we're all competing for the same employees from the same vocational school that
Sure.
graduates 16 to 18 students per year. So,
Holy
it's
smokes.
not just putting myself on the existing programs advisory boards, but it's what else can we do to get more students exposed to it? Or
Mm-hmm.
we've got these grant paid training programs for unemployed and underemployed adults,
Mm-hmm.
um, through the regional employment board, which is called Mass Hire. And they do it once or twice a year, depending on the funding, and because they do it at a couple of the vocational schools in the region. So they'll bring, as long as the adult is unemployed or if they're grossly underemployed, they can attend this training and become machinists. And I think it was in 2018. We hired three for one of those programs. One went into my late department, one went into assembly, and the other one is going to end up being my QC manager when my QC manager retires.
Wow.
One of them's still with us. The other two didn't fit the culture. Um,
Okay.
our future QC manager, but I'm all about entry level. It's you don't know what someone's capable of until you give them the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is your average sort of, obviously you have some with a lot of tenure, but what is your average sort of employee age? How has that changed over the years?
If you were here right now and you were walk about around my shop, you would be very surprised at how many young folks we have. More people here are between um, hmm, 19 to 35 than older
Mm-hmm.
than that. I mean, we still
Wow.
have we're in the 40s, 50s, and
Sure.
60s, but we've got a lot more young folks now.
That's that's
Yeah.
that's so that's encouraging.
Yeah,
That's
and then
awesome.
it's also where we've got a lot more women on the shop floor as well. When I first came back 10 years ago, it was the only women here were Chris, who was our shipper receiver,
Mm-hmm.
myself, and my mother.
Right.
And now we have uh, we're down to three ladies on the shop floor. We did have six. Oh no, four ladies on the shop floor. We had six. One of them decided to relocate to Florida last year, and the other one got a job closer to home because she was doing about a 45-minute commute. And I couldn't
Right.
argue with that. I'm like, I
Of
can't. I'm like,
course.
I get that. I wouldn't want a 45-minute drive, especially with gas the way it is right now
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you about that. Obviously, you're a female leader. How do you help promote that? How do you help in your own shop and in the industry, right? There's not nearly enough
Right.
women leaders in this industry.
There's not. And to get to in any shop, if you want to diversify your employee base, they need to see people that look like them in order to feel comfortable with coming into it.
Yeah.
So I whenever we bring in young ladies or hire, adult women or anything, it's like, look, I know where you're at. This isn't an easy environment to work in. The majority of the guys on my shop floor are really good about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they know how to treat a lady. But they also know that when we're in a machine shop, we've got a little bit thicker skin, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be babied or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, I
Right.
can lift this 50-pound box by myself. I'm good with that.
Right.
There are a few in here that, if I hear something, I will pull them aside immediately, and say, I don't ever want to hear that again, because guess who
Mm-hmm.
signed your check? I do.
Mm-hmm.
And you've
Yep.
got two women who run this company and, have you employed here.
Yeah.
So remember
Yeah.
that.
Good for you.
I offer if something's going on, my door is always open, except for right now because it's closed because we're on this podcast. I am always here. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be ashamed. We had when we brought in our laser welding machine in 2019, we had to bring in like higher voltage, a bigger electrical panel
Mm-hmm.
to handle it. So there was an electrician working in here, and he was ogling one of my inspectors who's very young. She's been
Mm-hmm.
with us since 2017. I think she's 22 or 23, just had her first child last year.
Mm-hmm.
Ogling her and everything, made some comments. No one said anything to me about it. Someone else, one of the other young women in our shop, told me about it. Like, Amanda's really upset. This is
Mm-hmm.
what happened. And I went out there immediately, and the electricians were still there. I talked to Amanda, and I was like, don't. She's like, well, I didn't want to like say anything because I didn't like it would have been my fault. I'm like, oh no, no, no. I'm like, it is not your fault. I'm like, he doesn't have to be acting like that. I'm like, it's 2020, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
2019. I'm like, it's 1950s. This is a different time. You do not have to take that. Don't ever take it. Stand up for yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, you get me, and they will never be welcome in this shop again.
Right.
So I don't yell at someone else's employee. I talk to the manager, and that
Sure.
guy was removed from our building immediately, never
Mm-hmm.
allowed back in here. And it's just, I'll stand up for anyone in here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I will really make a point to stand up for the young ladies, because I know
Mm-hmm.
what it's like. I've been I mean, I always joke around. I'm like, look, I'm the oldest of four. My dad wanted a boy, um, and he got me instead. So that explains a lot of how I am the way I am. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get offended. I can make a sailor blush. It's I don't it's my brother's former Navy, or he
Yeah.
was medically retired but former Navy, and we had a discussion about that one time. He's like, "There's nothing you can say that can offend me," and I'm like, "You want to bet?" He ran out of my car faster than he could go. Oh my God, Chris, and because when I've always worked in male dominated things,
Sure.
I ran a warehouse at a gourmet cookware store.
Mm-hmm.
It's then I was a buyer for a fire alarm contractor. I learned to build fire control panels, all this. I got taught how to be
Mm-hmm.
an auto mechanic. I like a challenge. I like to figure things out. If I had
Mm-hmm.
been a little bit more self-directed when I was younger, I probably would have gone to engineering school, but I wasn't, so I didn't.
Right.
So I know what it's like. I've been through it, and I've done it alone. But I've
Mm-hmm.
also had employers who have supported me,
Mm-hmm.
given me those opportunities, those chances,
Yeah.
told me that I could stand up for myself. You don't have to take that from anyone. And when
Right.
you're reinforced that from the outside, it makes the biggest difference. It changes who
Yeah.
you are, for the better. So
Right.
Caitlin, my girl Caitlin, she actually, when she applied to the scholarship this year, she had put in there that she actually wants to work on becoming a mentor for other young women because of her experience at Peerless and with me. And that
That's
almost made me
beautiful.
cry. Like, I've got
Yeah.
goosebumps. And I'm
I
like,
think
oh my
you're gonna make me cry. Yeah.
I was like, that is like, and I'm like, I'm sorry that I read your application, but I was the one submitting it, and you did ask me to check it for spelling errors. And I'm like, I'm like, can I give you a hug? I'm like, because I'm like, that was the biggest compliment. I'm like, that just means that I've succeeded. Even though I wasn't going towards that, like, that just means so much to me. And like the fact that I've had that impact on someone else, it surprises me. I've been called
Hmm.
another woman's role model, and I looked at my mom one time, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Michaela just called me her role model. Whoever thought that that would be me?"
That's
You
that's
know,
so awesome.
if I can, I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't, but it's just
No.
like, it's such like an affirmation of like what I'm doing is the right thing. And it's had this impact on this, when Caitlin came to us, she had graduated from a vocational school about 45 minutes from here where she lives in Ware, Massachusetts.
Hmm.
And she had been on a co-op at this other company. And then when she wanted to go to Springfield Tech, she didn't think that she could balance a full-time job while going to school. So she was working at Ocean State Job Lot. Do you guys have that out where you live?
Not
Or
the
Big
particular
Lots? Big
program.
Lots?
Oh, yes,
So
yes, we
it's
do
like a
have
Big
them.
Lots. And she was
Okay.
like making 12 bucks an hour, or not even that, like 10 bucks an hour. I don't even remember what
Right.
it was.
Sure.
And then she got on this internship, and I'm like, all right, so here's, I offered her 15 right off the bat as an intern.
Hmm.
It's when because we're on the rise of, going to be at $15 an hour minimum wage, I think by next year. So when they
Right.
made that announcement, it was over a 6-year period. I'm like, all entry level is $15 an hour moving forward. I don't want to start lower because I don't want to have to make that jump later on.
Sure.
And when I offered that, she started crying because she
Oh,
didn't think that she was worth that.
wow, that's awesome.
And she's just an amazing. I mean, eventually, when she gets her degree, she's going to move into my estimating department
Hmm.
for a while, to start
Hmm.
learning from that, to get into process engineering because she's going to school to make improvements, to
Yeah.
improve efficiencies and everything. So I want to make sure she's not doing that for nothing. And we've talked about it. She wants to, take that here. She wants to be here forever,
Hmm.
as long as I'll have her. And I say no, as long as you'll have me. That's the
Hmm.
this is both ways. This is it's not a one way street in my
Hmm.
shop. It's both
Right.
ways.
Right.
Um, and then eventually she wants to go back and go get a master's degree in tool making. And I'm like, you just keep doing what you want to do, and I will support you here as long as you want to be here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I asked the question, but I think it's obvious to everyone listening why you have employees with such tenure and such a great culture there. That's
Yeah,
inspiring thing. Yeah.
it's
Thank you for
thank
sharing
you.
that.
I mean, it's when I hear people talking about their rollover and how you retain employees, only treat them how you'd want to be treated.
Hmm.
It is that
Sure.
easy. It is
Yeah.
that easy.
Yeah.
It's not, and right now we're not an employer market right now. We're an employee. It's like it's not a buyer's market for houses. It's totally a seller's market. It's not an
Sure.
employer's market right now for employee to hire
Yeah.
people. It's an employee market.
Yep.
So recognize that.
That is for sure the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to take it back to something that makes me cry less,
Yeah.
you before we got on, you said you were about to celebrate landing a new customer that you've been working on for 3 years.
Yeah.
So, how do you go about finding new customers? How do you do marketing? What is your strategy around all that?
Well, so for a long time, it's been just trade shows. Trade show.
Okay.
I would do 1 to 3 trade shows a year. I don't like to
Mm,
overextend myself. I've always been really good at landing one new customer per trade show. The size of them depends, but it's
yeah.
always about like, look, let's start off small,
Hmm.
and grow with each other. I want to prove that we can do, what I'm
Yep.
telling you we can do, and
Yep.
I'm not looking for a $10,000 order. First off, I'm like, let me get let us get in our foot in the door, and then we can go from
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Over the past few years, especially with the pandemic, I've been working with Paperless Parts,
Yep.
and they do online marketing for me. So, and we're
Right.
also registered a verified supplier on Thomasnet,
Yep.
which was acquired by Xometry. So,
Hmm.
our Google ratings have gone up huge. Like if you were to Google Coldwells or Cold Fingers, we'd show up like 20 times.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
very high end specific part that we make.
Yeah.
Um, so we Paperless Parts picks my brain and pulls out things that I can't always articulate.
Hmm.
Um, and does my monthly newsletters.
Hmm.
I still do trade shows. That might stop though. I don't know because it's right now we're getting more RFQs from internet searches, LinkedIn,
Right. Right.
than we are from the trade shows.
Yeah.
And or it's also I'm all about the long game. So a lot of times when I meet potential clients at the trade shows, that's going to be a 6 month to 2 year process before we actually start working with them,
Right.
because it's all about the long game. And I know there's
Yeah.
approvals and certifications they need to do, audits. But so, and then also they're doing social media posting for me. We're all over LinkedIn,
Hmm.
Facebook. I'm going around taking pictures, of new parts that we're making as often as I see them, so
Hmm.
that we can keep
Hmm.
sharing and educating. So whenever we get a new request for quote from a new potential customer, I always like to ask them how they found us.
Yep.
And they'll say, "Oh, we got your newsletter," or I found you on Google," or "This is I actually just quoted someone through Xometry, through Thomas
Mm-hmm.
Net recently because they found us
Right.
through that. So
Right.
you know, we've been I was a very hard sell on online marketing as a machine shop because most of the time they need to see the parts that you're making.
Sure.
But again, I don't know if I'm going to be doing many more trade shows moving forward because this has
Mm-hmm.
been so good. And if we've got too much to quote, we're going to start dropping the ball. I mean, we always want it. We want to be loaded with quotes. As I
Sure.
have to tell my guys sometimes, I'm like, look, I know we got to focus on what we have now, but if we're not constantly quoting and trying to find new parts, new customers, new industries,
Yeah.
then what happens when everything we're working on dries up?
Sure.
You
Of
know,
course.
and sure, we
Yeah.
might get a little overloaded for a little while. We might have to be pushing some more overtime, but that's going to mean we're going to be looking to hire more employees. We're going to be looking at that expansion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, in our shop, we learned that lesson the hard way. We do some sales, we get really busy, and while we were busy fulfilling all those orders, we wouldn't be doing sales,
Yeah.
and then we did in this vicious
So my
cycle.
former commercial bankers were all when I first came back. Where I'm like, well, I'm not doing trade shows because we're just so busy, and they're like, the time to do trade shows and get new customers is
Is
when you are
when you're
busy,
busy. Yeah.
because when you're slow, it's too late.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yep.
nonstop thing for me, and it's I was excited to go back in person for trade shows last year when the pandemic when you could start doing
Mm-hmm.
it again, and I love doing them. I'm an ambivert, which before I got pumped up as much as I have been over the past decade. I'm
Mm-hmm.
more introverted by nature. Nobody believes me
Mm-hmm.
when I say that. With strong extroverted capabilities and tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned to embrace how outgoing I am. I talk to people in a way that works for every different type of personality, so that we're all on the same page. And
Right.
I don't take myself seriously either, which a lot of people appreciate. And you saw that in Phoenix. So
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, yeah.
some of your
It's
team saw that. Everybody
easy
else
to
did.
let your guard
So,
down and just
yeah,
laugh and have fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because that's when you really get to know people. And you know, it's funny because when I first came back, there was a board member who was a business development manager for a large machine shop in our area and a board of the Western Mass chapter. And he looked at me and he said, "So the best networking is never done at the trade show or at the conference. It's at the hotel bar afterwards." And I've
Right.
actually landed contracts by sitting at the hotel bar drinking by myself, and then someone sitting next to me, or just eating and having a beer, and then we
Mm-hmm.
start talking, and they learn what we can do. I learn what they do, and then I get an RFQ, the next day.
I love
So
that. I love
it's
that.
and I'm like, yeah, I'll pay to do all this, but I land more potentials or contracts like by having a drink with someone and just getting
Mm-hmm.
to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we're humans. We want connections. We want those
Absolutely.
relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about technology and cybersecurity before we've hit record. Sounds like you've been pretty proactive about your cybersecurity posture. Can you share a little bit about what you've been doing there?
Yeah. So it's been about a 5-6 year journey for us, 5 year journey. In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I didn't really take it seriously because, my customers weren't flowing it down. They weren't requiring it. A lot of my defense customers, I was more and still am more secure than they are and were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it got to the point where I was actually speaking with a very large prime contractor to the DoD. And it's actually the customer that I'm starting to onboard with.
Right.
Probably after this call, I got a lot of paperwork and profiling to fill out. But
Mm-hmm.
it's I have a guy. Well, I had hired a lobbyist for about a year. And he actually got me into this company and got me set up with meetings down in Washington with our U.S. congressmen and congresspeople and senators and everything. What do you
Wow.
need? Like, what do you guys do? I never realized how important it was to have that back and forth and relationship with our elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then my lobbyist, Joe, had introduced me to this strategic sourcing manager for this prime contractor and loved, she had my business card sitting on her desk for 3 years because it says 5 million of evidential tolerance right on there.
Right.
But it's at that time, the only way that they would even talk to us is if we got certified um, to the CMMC level 3, which now it's
Okay.
not required anymore because they changed their mind at the beginning of the year.
Sure.
So we're at the level 2 we need. But it was like, okay, so now I'm getting to this point where it's not affecting my relationship with my current customers. But if I want to keep growing within the defense industry, I need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I started the journey with our previous IT company who had been with us for years. They were with us pre-server days when we were all daisy chained, and
Mm-hmm.
that drove me
Mm-hmm.
nuts. So with me when I brought in a server and all that,
Sure.
and when I approached them about um, how how well versed or how familiar you are with you guys with cybersecurity and the CMMC requirements and this compliance, and they said, not at all, but we'll figure this out together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had a soft spot in my heart, and I didn't want to break up with them. We had a good
Right.
relationship. They brought in a consultant that was supposed to write the manual, who used to work at Raytheon. She gave me the template manual straight from the NIST website, and
Mm-hmm.
here you go. You have to act like you're an IT professional and figure all this out.
Mm.
So it was a nightmare for me for 2 years. And
Right.
I met with another strategic IT company who was all about cybersecurity. Knew, they have the whole CMMC manual right there, and they know how important it is for their clients. When I first talked with their owner, the price tag they gave me, I was just like, oof. I'm like, that's a lot more per month than I'm paying right now. I don't know if I can do it. And I'm like, can't you guys just help me with this so I don't have to break up with my IT company because I've got a really good relationship with them. They said, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's one or the other. And then, the year before I moved, I transitioned everything over. I gave it one last go. And it just didn't go well. The consultant was giving me the runaround. Nothing was getting done. I was again doing too much. I've got enough on
Mm-hmm.
my plate.
Sure. Of course.
It's not something that I ever would want to do, but you have to do it. But now I delegate, like my brother who works here is the internet security manager, so I don't have to deal with it. And he reports things to me. But
Mm-hmm.
once we moved over to the strategic IT company, we redid our self-assessment. Got an accurate look of what we had. We did a 360 assessment here, so they could see, point out where all of our gaps were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I applied for a workforce training grant, which we've had since last year, for training and develop, to get our consultant who does all of our AS 9100 and ISO 9001 consulting.
Okay.
He's doing it, for the ISO 27001 and CMMC.
Nice.
Um,
Okay.
so he's done the whole panel or the whole manual, and now we're redoing the manual because the requirements have changed. We finished it last year, and now we got to rewrite it again.
Mm-hmm.
And um, he's on. We have monthly phone calls or Teams meeting calls with our IT company. He's on them. He's asking him questions. We're getting things put in place. They're
Right.
running phishing. We've got them running phishing campaigns. We're doing online tests all the time. Um, and it's just everything got put into place. So
Yeah.
and now it's, I've got a 110 out of 110 on the self-assessment. And now
Brilliant.
all of a sudden, to get into this prime contractor, I needed at least a 90. And I went to a supplier development conference with at somewhere close to their facility and way in more Western Mass than I am. Um, and they send out these things called tech scouts, and I get them. I've been
Okay.
signed up forever. And
Yep.
there was one that went out looking for manufacturers who had at least a 90 out of 110 on their self-assessment and reported into the
Okay.
SPRS system. And I said,
Sure.
"Oh, that's me." So I filled it
Yeah.
out. So I started, a brief onboarding process, but then what I just heard back from today, and she was on vacation for a while, is that I would like to start onboarding you. Please submit this profile and please provide me a screenshot of your SPRS score. So,
That's
it's
that's
my
awesome.
my I guess what I'd like everyone to learn from me, and I've actually spoken on cybersecurity panels multiple times over the past year as the employer perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's, if you go to your IT company and ask them if they're familiar with it, and they say and you get told, we're not, but let's figure out this together. Do yourself
Right.
a favor and go find a new IT company. I know it's
Right.
hard.
Right.
Get a consultant. It's rely on the people who know what the hell they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is cybersecurity is, it's
It's
completely out of our scope.
yeah. It's very
and
different.
the template manual that they have that they give to people is the same manual that like the prime contractors are supposed to use, or like the
Yeah.
Department of Defense. Most of the stuff that's in there does not apply to me.
Right.
I'm going through it and there's restrictions on the fax machine. I'm like, you know what? I hate my fax machine. We're just going to get rid of it. We don't have a fax machine anymore.
Right.
It's because all that was coming on there is junk.
Sure.
And I'm like, they're in there referring to 3.5-inch floppy disks or 5.5-inch floppy disks. Is it,
Sure.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't even buy a computer with a CD-ROM on it anymore, CD drive on
Yeah.
it anymore. So,
Sure.
but it's knowing that it doesn't all have to be on me. I can, I find people who are smarter than I am on that front,
Mm-hmm.
and then pay them
Mm-hmm.
to help me out with it. And I'm lucky enough where I live in a state where a portion of all of my unemployment dollars goes into a workforce training fund, which I am actually the chair of the state's workforce training fund as well,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about workforce development.
Yeah.
And so every 2 years, every 3 years, I can apply for a 2-year full grant up to $250,000 for training.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Wow.
already paying into it. I'm taking advantage of that.
Sure.
Those dollars are coming back to us to help better our company and make us more competitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess the question that's on everyone's mind, do you ever sleep?
Not well. But yeah, I mean, I haven't been a good sleeper in a long time. If I get 5 to 6 hours a night, that's good. So
But you're on so many boards, you're the chair of this and that. It's just remarkable how
yeah, it's just
engaged you
ridiculous.
are.
And I actually pulled back from a lot of things, like at the start of the pandemic. I forgot how nice it was to be home
Mm-hmm.
more than one night a week for dinner, and I don't
Right.
really want to go back to that.
Right.
So I mean, the boards that I'm on, we're usually doing, Teams or Zoom meetings during the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's if there's a hybrid option, instead of me driving all the way out to Boston to go to something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it from Zoom while everyone else is there in person.
Right.
Because it's the pandemic and everything was allowing kind of me to reset. And again,
Mm-hmm.
people, I question it all the time. Like, why does everyone want me to be on these boards? What do you see in me? It's, you guys are all, but I get it now. I can pat myself on the back and acknowledge that I am the president of Awesome Sauce, which my friend calls me. So I like using that. Um, and I'm willing to put myself out there, and be vulnerable, speak the truth. I don't sugarcoat anything. With
Mm-hmm.
me, what you see is what you get. You won't ever
Right.
get anything else. So there's
Yeah.
an authenticity that I offer, and I tell people exactly what they need to hear, not what
Right.
they want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's
Fantastic.
I've said no. I've pulled out of some boards over the past 2 years. I've said no.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm happy to join this board, but don't even think about putting me in an officer position. I'm already an officer on too many boards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time. What's the
Right.
commitment level? How many, like, are we meeting monthly or quarterly? It just depends. I'm like, because I do still have a company that I have to run that pays my
Yeah.
bills. Everything
Okay.
else is volunteer work.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. Engaging in helping build our industry is just it should be a part of every shop owner, shop leader's day, week, month, year.
We just actually went through our AS 9100 recertificate or surveillance audit. We finished it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was last week, and when we were doing our closing meeting, the auditor looks at me and he's like, "And you, my dear, as far as leadership, he's like, all those newsletters that you send out, all your postings on LinkedIn, everything that you're involved in is exactly what we want to see from someone in your position as leader." And it was like, "Excuse me, what?" I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "You look at that for the audit?" And I almost started crying. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
So I can't start backing out of these things yet, can I?" I guess I got to keep saying yes.
Yes. Wow. So, want to start looking to wrap up this. I could talk to you for hours. This
I
is
know
so
we've been through this
fun.
before.
Yes.
We can always do a volume 2 or episode 2 at some point too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for, the goal of this podcast is to help transfer some of the wisdom of people like you to the younger generation, people just getting into, shop ownership or thinking about that. What would be your sort of best advice or secrets of your success besides everything you've already shared?
Know your limits, know what you can do and what you can't do, and be good with relying on other people and delegating.
Hmm.
Especially if you're looking to start a shop or buy a shop. Um, people like me, or shop owners, we're usually typically type A personalities, which are control freaks, and we have to do everything ourselves. I paid a coach for 3 years, 4 years, to get me comfortable with relying on other people, and I'm not always the one who has to do it, because you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your company.
Yeah.
If you do things like know when you have to pass something off. If you bring in a management team, if you have managers or just employees that have that potential, trust them. Trust that they're going to do it because they have your best interest and their best interest in mind. For any younger people out there, or even adults, you're never too old for a career change. Manufacturing is a great option. It's a very viable career. It's
Absolutely.
competitive. It's not a minimum wage job. It doesn't it doesn't require a college degree. It doesn't mean that you can't go pursue one, because guess what? You might find an employer like myself who will help pay for it because it's going to help you within the company you're working at.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's if you're, what I like to say is, when my foreman started here at 18, by 21, he was building his home. You
That's
can't,
awesome.
it's college isn't for everyone, and it's okay not to go. I will be 100% transparent and admit that I am a college dropout. I went for 2.5 years for business administration because I was told that's what I had to do. And if I didn't go to college, there would be nothing for me. And this coming from a father who ran a machine shop. No kid of mine's going to vocational school. You guys are all going to college. I was very lost when I was in college. I was trying to figure things out. There was a lot going on at home that had my mind going too. And then I felt that I was following someone else's path. So I dropped out and learned that I learned better by doing hands-on than by sitting in a classroom being told. So
Sure.
college isn't for everyone, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're only going to be making coffee and flipping burgers somewhere, because those are getting automated anyway. So there's other opportunities in there. There are trades out there. We need machinists. Manufacturing America is not dead. It's thriving and growing. I mean,
Absolutely.
especially since the pandemic, we might have all slowed down a little bit for a period, but with the supply chain crunches that we're dealing with, especially on a global level, more and more customers are bringing parts back from overseas, and it's getting to the point where it's hard to keep up with quoting. So it's no matter what anyone hears, robots aren't taking our jobs. They're only going to help what we do and make us more efficient and make it safer. And not everything is going overseas to Asia anymore. It's coming back. So this is almost like a renaissance of manufacturing happening, and it's really exciting. And I'm so super happy to be part of it. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, or you identify however you want to, you can be a machinist.
Hallelujah. That is that is absolutely spot on. Yeah. Well, I know I'm sure I can speak for everyone listening. The passion you bring is inspiring. So I really appreciate the way you show up in the world and the way you show up in our industry. You're absolutely helping make it better. So I appreciate that. And thank you for being on the show. Just last thing, how do people, if people want to reach out to you, how would you like them to connect with you?
Well, you can always, visit my website, peerlessprecision.com. You can shoot me. I'm on LinkedIn, Kristin with an I, Carlson. Or you can always just shoot me an email at kcarlson@peerlessprecision.com.
Okay, you gave out your email, so
I did.
okay.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Very good. Well, Kristin, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us, and I look forward to seeing you at an event soon.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. It's been so much fun, and I really appreciate being on today.
All right, have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks.